Hello and welcome to our presentation. Today we'll be discussing the order routing batch processor for single item orders. My name is Tom and I'll be your presenter for this video. The order routing batch processor is designed to allocate products for single item orders and route those items to the appropriate distribution center for processing and shipment. Before we get started, let's discuss some global components of Communicate Pro for StoneEdge. Look to the bottom right of the status bar. On the right side of the status bar you will see three panels. The first panel displays the name of the current user logged into Communicate Pro. The next panel displays the company name, which in this case is Mishimoto Automotive. And finally, the last panel, which happens to be the most important panel for the purposes of order routing development and testing, is the application version. The version info is crucial for development, testing, training, and production. I've sent an email explaining the three components to versioning we use, but I'll briefly explain it again for this presentation. Looking at the version panel, you will see displayed Rio 22.137. The components for the version are the platform Rio, the release year 22 for 2022, and finally the build or release number 137. Even numbered builds and those ending in a multiple 5 are public releases. Odd number builds are private releases. Mishimoto's build numbers will always be odd number from the current build onward. There will be a change to versioning for the next release. Since the new year is 2023, the year portion of the version will be changed from 22 to 23. The current build under review is Rio 22.137. The new release candidates will have incremented odd build numbers. The next release candidate will be Rio 23.139. Let's get started with the order routing batch processor for single item orders presentation. Go to the ribbon bar and select the Analyzers tab. Navigate to the Custom Analyzers and select the Order Routing Batch Processor menu item. When the singles batch processor first appears on screen, it is empty. Retrieving orders with items ready to route automatically allocates item quantities and assigns those to the appropriate distribution centers. As allocation occurs, the distribution center quantities are decremented since they will be reserved for the items ready for routing. The auto allocation and distribution center assignments must be initiated manually by clicking on the Singles command button located in the lower right of the batch processor. Click the Singles button to retrieve and display items ready for routing. As you can see, there are 792 orders with single items ready for routing. Let's look at the data groups and columns for the batch processor so we can explain what they represent. This batch processor features 5 groups, one of which, the customer group, is not visible by default. The order info group contains essential data about the order. The shipping group contains info about the order shipment. The product info group contains info about the item. The DC routing group contains the allocation, DC assignment, and routing status of the item. This group is further distinguished with a cream-colored background. The batch processor is divided into 2 sections. The left section comprises order, shipping, customer, and product info. The right section consists of allocation, routing, and status of the item. The first set of columns we'll discuss are in the order info group. The order number column is the assigned order number. The approved column is the date the order was approved for routing. By default, orders are sorted by approval date, then order number. This sort order ensures that the oldest orders are allocated first. If multiple orders have the same approval date, it is then sorted by order number. Usually, lower order numbers mean older orders. The source column indicates the source of sale or shopping cart. The next set of columns we'll discuss are in the shipping group. The method column is the shipping method assigned to the order. The city, state, and zip code columns represent where the order is being shipped. The next set of columns we'll discuss are in the product info group. The SKU column represents the stock keeping unit designation assigned to the product. The type column represents the product type. There are 3 product types: standard, kit, and part. The batch processor for single item orders product type will always be standard. The next set of columns we'll discuss, which are the most important columns for the batch processor, are in the DC routing group. The ordered column represents the number of units ordered for the product. The allocated column represents the number of units allocated for the product. For a successful allocation, this number should equal the number in the ordered column. When these 2 numbers disagree, it leads to the importance of the next column. The needed column represents the number of units still needed after allocation has been applied. The needed value indicates a shortfall, which means the quantity ordered is greater than the units that can be allocated. There may still be some units allocated, but is insufficient to fill the order. When the needed value is greater than 0, the order is not routable. We'll get to the routable column in a moment and explain its significance. The Delaware, Nevada, and cable columns represent the number of units allocated to the respective distribution centers. The routable column represents a yes or no value indicating if the item can be routed to a DC for fulfillment. A check indicates it can, and no check means it cannot. The CFM or confirm column represents a yes or no value indicating if the item has been confirmed or committed for routing. Once an item has been confirmed or committed for routing, the order routing synchronizer will process the item and route it to the assigned distribution centers. Once an order has been routed to the DCs, it can no longer be deconfirmed, so be sure it's what you want. Since the order routing synchronizer executes periodically, there's a short window of opportunity to undo confirmations. I would not rely on this though. Rule of thumb: be sure of the allocation and routing before confirming. Let's discuss the color scheme being used. We employ a basic color scheme anyone can understand: red for stop, yellow for caution, and green for go. The allocated column will either be green or red. Green indicates the units allocated match the units ordered. If these columns disagree, then the needed column value will be red. If these columns agree, then the needed column value will be 0. Any positive value in the Delaware, Nevada, or cable columns will be colored green. It's possible to have green values within the Delaware, Nevada, and cable columns but still not be routable. The allocated and order values must equal for an order to be routable. The order is not routable anytime the needed value is greater than 0. These are the current rules for routing single item orders. Let's discuss some additional features found in the singles batch processor. Look at the bottom right, you will see a variety of command buttons. We've already discussed the singles button. Let's discuss the remaining command buttons. The next button is the Edit DC. This feature provides a way to override allocations and routings. Select order number 475167 and click on the Edit DC button to display the order routing editor. The editor is divided into 3 sections. The first section, located on the left, is the allocation summary for the order. It displays the allocation, needed, and ordered values. The next section displays the DC allocations, meaning how many units were allocated to each DC. The last section are the current DC quantities for the item to be routed. Let me show you how easy it is to change the default allocations. Let's say you want cable to fulfill some of the 46 units allocated for this order. Go to the cable spin edit box and change the value from 0 to 10. Notice the OK button is now disabled. You cannot apply your changes because it's over allocated. You will need to decrement other DCs by 10 units for the OK button to re-enable so you can apply the changes. Let's change the allocation for Delaware. Go to the Delaware spin edit box and change the value from 29 to 19. Once the Delaware DC value is set to 19, the OK button is enabled. Once satisfied with your changes, click on the Confirm checkbox to confirm the allocation for order routing. Click on the OK button to save your changes. See how easy it is to override allocations and routings. The next button we'll discuss is Deallocate. Clicking the Deallocate button will deallocate all allocations and return those quantities back to inventory en masse. It's a convenient way to undo the allocation. It will also undo any confirmations as long as those confirmations have not been routed to the DCs. The Confirm button confirms all orders that are routable. The Deconfirm button deconfirms any confirmations not routed to the DCs. The Deallocate, Confirm, and Deconfirm command button processes apply to all orders within a single batch processor. If you want to apply these processes to select items instead, there is a way to do that to either single or multiple selected items. Let me show you how to confirm multiple selected items simultaneously. First, go to the ribbon bar and click on the Display button. The Display Options dialog will appear. Go to the Grid Settings section and toggle on the Multi-Select option if not already toggled on. Click on the OK button to apply the grid settings. Select a few of the orders randomly. Click the right mouse button anywhere within the batch processor and select Confirm Selected from the pop-up menu. A dialog appears and prompts you to proceed. Select the Yes button. See how easy that was to confirm selected allocations for routing? Now that we've explained how to use a singles batch processor, let's discuss a few of the features you might find useful. Go back to the Display button located on the right side of the ribbon bar and click it. The Display Options dialog will appear. Go to the Column View Settings section and toggle on the Customer Column option. Click on the OK button to apply the column settings. There is a new Customer Info group visible with a name and company column. Screen space is limited, so essential groups and columns are visible by default. However, any additional groups or data columns available for an analyzer can be found in the Display Options dialog Column View section. The next feature we'll discuss are the data pages. In general, data pages for any analyzer contains additional detailed information for the selected item. The batch processor has a data page with additional details for the selected item. Go to the Options section of the ribbon bar and click on the folder image. The data page contains 4 panels. We'll explain each panel starting at the top with the routing summary and work our way to the bottom with the DC quantities. The routing summary panel provides an allocation summary of the selected item. The format used for this panel makes it easy to understand product allocation and routing. The next panel, products, lists the item for allocation and routing. There will only be one item listed with the batch processor for single order items. The routing panel displays all the routing info submitted for the order so the order routing synchronizer can process it accordingly. There will be a record for each DC assignment. The DC quantities panel displays the current quantity on hand at each DC for the item. The quantity expected date, and days until expected arrival are proposed features which can be useful when allocating and routing orders. One last feature we'll discuss is filtering. Before we get into filtering, there's been some talk on how and what to filter, but has not been finalized. Currently, the singles process is selecting a group of orders, but not necessarily what would be expected in a production environment with the batch processor. We need to clarify this process since it's a crucial component. Click the right mouse button anywhere within the batch processor to select Search from the pop-up menu. Let's discuss the available filters for this report. The date range option located upper left of the data filters is set to 30 days by default. This date range will retrieve and display single order items for the last 30 days. You can select any range you like using the selectors, or manually adjust the starting and ending dates to whatever date range you require. In the lower left of the data filters are date options, which determine which date type is used for selecting sales data. The approval date is selected by default. The approval date is the preferred date when generating single order items for allocation and routing. The next set of filters we'll review are the filter options found in the upper right of the data filters. There are no filters currently defined, so there are none to discuss. We can use this area for any additional options you deem appropriate. The data filters for this report include additional filter tabs located across the bottom. You can filter by custom, orders, order states, order status, ship methods, and sources. Now that we've explained the filter options and what they signify for this analyzer, let's return to the batch processor and discuss column filtering. All data analyzers feature column filtering, which allows you to filter data with the values in the filtered column. Hover your mouse over the right of the column named Source until a filter image appears. Click on the Filter button to view a list of unique values found within the Source column from a drop-down menu. Select a value Magento B2B US from the list. The batch processor now displays 10 items listed instead of the original 792. Now select a value Magento from the list. The batch processor now displays 330 items with both Magento B2B US and Magento Source of Sales selected. Now click on All located at the top of the drop-down list. Selecting All removes any filters for the column and restores the batch processor to the original 792 single order items. You can filter multiple columns simultaneously. Column filters are applied in the order selected. For example, you could filter Magento for the source and UPS next day air for the ship method. Filter refinements like this can help you drill into data so you can better manage the allocation and routing process. There are many other features Communicate Pro provides, like data exporting and printing, for example. We'll discuss those at another time. Lastly, let's discuss session cleanup. The batch processor automatically cleans up an allocation and routing session. Essentially, any unconfirmed orders remaining when the session ends is automatically deallocated. When allocation occurred, the quantities for the respective DCs are decremented. Unconfirmed allocations need to be returned to the respective DCs and those quantities incremented. We do this automatically since we cannot rely on the user to manually deallocate unconfirmed allocations. This is a critical aspect, so it cannot be left to chance. This concludes our presentation of the order routing batch processor for single order items for Mishimoto Automotive. For the most part, this presentation covered all the functionality necessary for single order item batch processing. Questions, comments, and feedback are always welcome. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.